There's a place where time stands still, where the past isn't just remembered but perfectly preserved, waiting beneath layers of ice to tell its story. Picture this, a vast, silent world of glaciers, where ancient secrets are locked away in frozen vaults, untouched by the rush of centuries. These aren't just blocks of ice, they're nature's time capsules, hiding clues to mysteries we've only begun to understand. And today, we're diving deep into one of the most fascinating phenomena on Earth, how glacial silence has preserved the impossible. Think about the last time you held something old, a family heirloom, a weathered photograph. Now imagine discovering an artifact so ancient, so perfectly intact, it's like stepping directly into the past. That's the magic of glaciers. They don't just freeze water, they freeze history itself. From tools wielded by prehistoric hands to entire ecosystems swallowed by ice, these frozen giants have safeguarded treasures that defy belief. And every discovery is a puzzle piece, helping us reconstruct worlds we thought were lost forever. But why does this matter now? Because these icy vaults aren't just about the past, they're a window into our future. As glaciers melt, they're revealing secrets at an unprecedented rate, offering lessons about climate, survival, and even human ingenuity. What if the key to understanding our planet's next chapter lies buried in the ice? That's the journey we're about to take, one that will challenge what you thought was possible and leave you in awe of the power of glacial silence. So settle in, because what's hidden beneath the ice might just change everything. Glaciers are nature's most meticulous archivists, working in slow motion to safeguard fragments of history that would otherwise vanish without a trace. Unlike museums or libraries, these frozen giants don't just store artifacts, they suspend them in time. The secret lies in their unforgiving environment. Sub-zero temperatures act as a natural pause button, slowing down chemical reactions that cause decay. But it's not just the cold. The layers of snow compacting over centuries create a vacuum-like seal, shielding whatever lies beneath from oxygen, bacteria, and the erosive forces of wind and water. Picture a prehistoric tool dropped by a hunter thousands of years ago. On open ground, it would weather away within decades, but encased in ice, it emerges millennia later, looking almost as if it were lost yesterday. Then there's the hidden language of ice cores, cylinders of ice drilled deep into glaciers that serve as frozen time capsules. Each layer tells a story, trapping air bubbles from ancient atmospheres, volcanic ash from long erupted mountains, even pollen from plants that haven't bloomed in ages. Scientists can read these layers like tree rings, reconstructing Earth's climate history with astonishing precision. For example, ice cores from Greenland have revealed sudden temperature shifts during the last ice age, proving our planet's climate can change violently in just a handful of years. But the real magic happens when glaciers retreat. As they melt, they surrender treasures we never expected to see again, like the 2,000-year-old Roman sandals found in Norway, or the perfectly preserved remains of a woolly mammoth in Siberia, its fur and even stomach contents still intact. These aren't just curiosities, they're snapshots of forgotten worlds, and with climate change accelerating glacial melt, these revelations are happening faster than ever. It's bittersweet. Each discovery comes with the sobering reminder that the very ice preserving these wonders is disappearing. Yet in their thawing whispers, glaciers are urging us to listen to the past and to the future it might help us navigate. Deep in the Siberian permafrost, something impossible woke up after 30,000 years. Scientists carefully thawed a sample of ancient ice, and to their astonishment, microscopic organisms stirred back to life. These weren't just dormant bacteria, they were time travelers, surviving against all odds in a frozen slumber that spanned entire epochs. If that sounds like science fiction, consider this. These tiny survivors aren't just rewriting the rules of life, they're forcing us to rethink what's possible. Take Pithovirus cybricum, a giant virus discovered in the same frozen soil. It spent 24,000 years encased in ice, yet when warmed, it infected amoebae as if no time had passed. How? The answer lies in glacial preservation. Ice doesn't just slow decay, it creates a near-perfect stasis chamber. Without liquid water, metabolic activity grinds to a halt. Cell membranes stay intact, protected from oxidation and microbial scavengers. It's like pressing pause on life itself. And if single-celled organisms can cheat time this way, what else might be waiting in the ice? The discovery of woolly mammoth DNA adds another layer to this mystery. While no intact mammoth has been revived, their genetic material survives in startlingly good condition, enough to spark serious debates about their extinction. Imagine a world where creatures from the last ice age walk again. But here's the twist: glacial preservation doesn't just challenge scientific limits, it forces ethical questions to the surface. Should we resurrect species that vanished millennia ago? What happens if ancient pathogens, long absent from our immune systems, hitch a ride into the present? Every thawing glacier is now a Pandora's box, offering both wonder and warning. The same ice that guarded these organisms for ages is melting faster than we can study its secrets. Yet with each revelation, we're reminded, life is far more resilient and nature far more cunning than we ever imagined. The silent ice didn't just preserve the past, it kept it alive, waiting for the moment we'd finally be ready to listen. Ötzi the Iceman wasn't just a mummy, he was a time capsule. When hikers stumbled upon his body in the Italian Alps in 1991, they didn't just find bones, they found a fully dressed man from the Copper Age. His leather coat stitched together with meticulous care, his copper axe still sharp enough to cut. His last meal, venison and wild grains, was preserved in his stomach. Even the arrow wound in his shoulder told a story, painting a vivid picture of his final moments over 5,000 years ago. Ötzi didn't just survive the ice saved his story from vanishing forever. But he's far from alone. Across Norway, retreating glaciers are spitting out relics of the Viking Age like a time machine in reverse. A 1,000-year-old woolen tunic, so well preserved you could still see the original weave. Iron arrows, their wooden shafts intact. Even remnants of sleds used to traverse these frozen highways, hinting at trade routes we never knew existed. These aren't just artifacts, they're proof that glaciers were once bustling corridors of human activity, now frozen in place like a paused film. And the most thrilling part: we've only scratched the surface. High in the Andes, scientists have found sacrificial offerings left by the Inca, figurines, pottery, even child mummies placed on mountaintops and swallowed by ice for centuries. In the Canadian Yukon, melting patches reveal hunting tools from indigenous peoples, some dating back 9,000 years. Each discovery chips away at the myth that glaciers are barren wastelands. Instead, they're libraries, ones where the books are written in leather, metal, and bone. But time is running out. As temperatures rise, these frozen archives are melting faster than we can document them. A Viking arrow degrades within days of exposure to air. A prehistoric shoe crumbles to dust if not rescued in time. It's a race against the elements, with every thawing glacier offering both a gift and a deadline. What else might emerge? A lost settlement, an unknown culture. The ice doesn't just hold answers, it holds questions we haven't even thought to ask. And with each reveal, it's clear the past isn't dead. It's been waiting. Beneath Greenland's icy surface lies a secret that rewrites everything we thought we knew about the Arctic. scientists drilling deep into the ice sheet pulled up something unexpected, not just sediment, but the twisted roots and delicate leaves of ancient trees perfectly preserved for 2 million years. This wasn't a barren wasteland. It was a thriving forest, a lost world where towering conifers once swayed in warm winds. How could a place now synonymous with endless ice have been so alive? The answer lies in the ice itself, nature's ultimate deep freezer, locking away entire ecosystems in suspended animation. These fossilized plants are more than curiosities, they're time machines. By studying their cellular structure, researchers uncovered something astonishing. These forests thrived during periods when carbon dioxide levels were only slightly higher than today's. That revelation sends chills down the spine because it suggests the Arctic's transformation from green to white wasn't some slow, inevitable shift. It happened fast, a dramatic warning written in fossilized bark. And as Greenland's ice retreats, more of these prehistoric landscapes emerge like pages torn from Earth's diary. In 2019, melting glaciers exposed a 50,000-year-old moss bank in Canada, still green, as if it had just stopped growing yesterday. But here's what's really haunting. These ancient plants survived extremes we're only beginning to understand. Their DNA holds blueprints for resilience, genes that help them endure wild temperature swings. Could those genetic secrets help modern crops adapt to our changing climate? Some scientists think so. Meanwhile, the ice keeps revealing surprises like the 3-million-year-old tundra plants found in Antarctica. Their tissues so intact they still produce chlorophyll when exposed to light. It's as if the glaciers are whispering, this was once possible, it could be again. Yet every discovery comes with a ticking clock. Exposed to air and sun, these botanical time capsules decay within weeks. Researchers race to document them before they crumble to dust, knowing each specimen holds clues to our planet's past, and perhaps the key to its future. Because if ice can preserve a forest for millions of years, what else might it be hiding? And as the thaw accelerates, one thing becomes clear. The Arctic's silent depths aren't just guarding history. They're forcing us to rewrite it. Glacial archaeology has become the ultimate race against time, a field where melting ice reveals treasures faster than we can save them. Picture teams of scientists scaling treacherous slopes, scanning receding ice patches with drones, their eyes peeled for the faintest glimpse of leather or wood peeking through the melt. Every summer, as temperatures climb, glaciers surrender relics that have been frozen for centuries, sometimes millennia. But there's a catch. Once exposed to air and sunlight, these artifacts can crumble within days. A Viking Age arrow shaft, perfectly preserved in ice for 1,000 years, might warp and split before researchers can reach it. That's the heartbreak and urgency driving this new golden age of discovery. Take the mountains of Norway, where retreating ice has exposed a staggering array of everyday objects: hunting bows, horse snowshoes, even a 600-year-old woolen mitten, its stitches still visible. These aren't the glittering gold of royal tombs, they're the quiet, intimate traces of ordinary people. A leather shoe, worn smooth by someone's foot centuries ago, tells us more about daily life than a dozen sword fragments. But saving these relics is a logistical nightmare. Teams must work in narrow windows of good weather, hauling gear to remote sites where helicopters can't always land. And then there's the puzzle of preservation. How to stabilize a wooden arrow that's been frozen for 800 years before it disintegrates in their hands. Technology is turning the tide. Ground-penetrating radar maps ice layers like an X-ray, spotting hidden artifacts before the melt exposes them. Drones with thermal cameras scan vast areas in hours, pinpointing where ice is thinning fastest. Back in labs, scientists use 3D scanning to create digital replicas of fragile finds. ensuring their stories survive even if the originals degrade. But perhaps the most groundbreaking tool is crowdsourcing, apps that let hikers report discoveries in real time. In 2022, a Norwegian tourist snapped a photo of a strange stick poking from ice. It turned out to be a 1,400-year-old ski, one of the oldest ever found. Yet for all our tools, the greatest challenge isn't technical, it's ethical. Indigenous communities often have deep cultural ties to these objects. In Alaska, melting permafrost has revealed ancestral tools of the Tlingit people, sparking conversations about who should steward them. Meanwhile, looters stalk melting sites drawn by the booming black market for antiquities. It's a stark reminder, these artifacts aren't just curiosities, they're fragments of living history, and their second chance at discovery comes with a responsibility. What makes glacial archaeology so extraordinary isn't just the age of these objects, it's their startling immediacy. A Bronze Age arrow, its feathers still intact, feels like it was fired yesterday. A child's woolen mitten, frozen mid-loss, connects us across centuries. As the ice retreats, it's not just revealing the past, it's handing us a fragile, fleeting invitation to touch it. And with every artifact rescued, we're reminded, time isn't just something we study, it's something we save. The irony is impossible to ignore. The same force that kept history locked away for millennia is now vanishing before our eyes. Glaciers, those silent guardians of the past, are retreating at a pace that alarms scientists and archaeologists alike. Every artifact they surrender is a gift, yes, but also a warning. Because for every Viking sword or prehistoric shoe pulled from the ice, there are countless others crumbling to dust before they can be saved. It's a paradox of our time. We're witnessing the greatest archaeological gold rush in history, fueled by an environmental crisis we can't afford to ignore. Take the mountains of Norway, where ice patches that held firm for thousands of years are now shrinking by dozens of feet each summer. In 2020 alone, researchers recovered over 2,000 artifacts from these melting frontiers: medieval horseshoes, Iron Age textiles, even a wooden whisk from the Viking era. But here's the catch: for every item carefully documented, experts estimate 10 more are lost forever, disintegrating in the sudden exposure to rain, sun, and microbes. It's like watching a library burn where each flaming page holds stories we'll never read. The stakes go beyond archaeology. Those same ice patches are climate archives, preserving layers of atmospheric history in their frozen cores. When they melt, we're not just losing artifacts, we're erasing vital data about Earth's past climate patterns. A single ice core from the Swiss Alps can reveal centuries of temperature shifts, volcanic eruptions, even industrial pollution levels. But as glaciers thin, future scientists may find these records hopelessly garbled by meltwater, like a waterlogged notebook. Yet there's a deeper urgency lurking in the permafrost. As Siberia's frozen ground thaws, it's releasing not just mammoth tusks but greenhouse gases like methane, trapped for millennia. Scientists call it a feedback loop. Warming melts ice, which releases more gases, which accelerates warming. Some Arctic sites are now exhaling methane at rates 200 times above normal, turning the very ground into a time bomb. And with it comes another risk: ancient pathogens, long dormant, waking up in a world unprepared for them. When researchers revived 40,000-year-old nematodes from Siberian permafrost in 2018, the worms immediately began moving and eating as if no time had passed. It's a stark reminder that not everything the ice preserves should be welcomed back. So how do we navigate this double-edged sword? Some teams are turning to technology, using AI to predict where ice will retreat next, giving them a head start on rescue missions. Others work with indigenous communities, combining traditional knowledge with satellite data to locate culturally significant sites before they vanish. But the real solution lies further upstream, slowing the melt itself. Because while glacial archaeologists race to save the past, climate scientists warn we're running out of time to protect the future. Every artifact saved is a triumph, but every glacier lost is a chapter ripped from Earth's storybook. The ice has been speaking for ages, now it's shouting. The sight stops you in your tracks, a woolly mammoth calf, pulled from Siberian permafrost with golden fur still clinging to its skin, its trunk wrinkled as if it merely dozed off in the ice 40,000 years ago. This isn't a fossil, it's a creature suspended between eras, so perfectly preserved you can almost feel the warmth it once carried. Glaciers and frozen tundra have gifted us with countless such miracles. Cave lions with whiskers intact, prehistoric horses still bleeding where their flesh thawed, even an extinct bison with its brain nearly pristine. These aren't bones turned to stone, they're biological snapshots, offering a glimpse into worlds we've only pieced together through fragments. What makes these discoveries so extraordinary isn't just their preservation, it's the details they reveal. Take Blue Babe, a 36,000-year-old steppe bison found in Alaska. When scientists examined its stomach, they found undigested grasses from its last meal, perfectly pressed like botanical specimens in a Victorian scrapbook. The minerals in those plants painted a vivid picture of the landscape. It roamed moist, lush meadows that once stretched where only ice exists today. Even more astonishing, some specimens still carry traces of DNA, strands of genetic code that survived millennia in nature's deep freeze. This genetic treasure trove has sparked a tantalizing question: could we bring these creatures back? Laboratories in Siberia and South Korea are already attempting to clone woolly mammoths using DNA extracted from permafrost-preserved tissue. The process involves splicing ancient genes into the cells of their closest living relatives. Asian elephants effectively reverse engineering a species gone for 4,000 years. But here's where science collides with ethics. Is it right to resurrect animals whose ecosystems vanished with the Ice Age? Would they be living exhibits, or could they rewild the Arctic, as some scientists propose? The debate grows even thornier with pathogens. When researchers thought a 30,000-year-old virus from Siberian permafrost in 2014, it promptly infected amoebae in the lab, proof that some microbes can survive ice ages unscathed. If ancient viruses remain infectious, what else might the permafrost release? It's a question without easy answers, especially as climate change accelerates thawing across the Arctic. Yet beyond the ethical dilemmas lies a deeper truth. These ice-bound animals aren't just curiosities, they're messengers. Their stomach contents tell us what plants thrived in ancient climates. Their bones hold isotopes that map migration routes lost to time. Even their injuries, a mammoth's broken rib, a wolf's healed bite, sketch dramas of survival in a vanished world. With every specimen, the ice whispers secrets about extinction, adaptation, and the fragile balance of ecosystems. And as the glaciers retreat, they're handing us a choice. Will we listen, or will we play with forces we don't yet understand? Beneath the crushing weight of glaciers, where sunlight never reaches, lies a hidden universe of ice caves, vast, twisting labyrinths carved by rivers of meltwater over centuries. These aren't just empty tunnels, they're living galleries, their walls shimmering with electric blue hues, their ceilings dripping with dagger like stalactites of ice. Step inside and you're walking through a frozen cathedral where every surface glows as if lit from within. But the real magic isn't just in their beauty, it's in what these caves preserve. Trapped within their walls are pockets of ancient air, time capsules of Earth's atmosphere from eras long before human civilization. When scientists analyze these bubbles, they're literally breathing the same air as woolly mammoths once did. The caves themselves are born from paradox. Glaciers, often seen as static monoliths, are constantly shifting, creaking, melting, and reforming. As summer meltwater carves channels beneath the ice, it creates networks so vast they rival subway systems. Some stretch for miles, their ceilings held up by the sheer pressure of the ice above. Explorers who venture into these chambers face a world of extremes. Temperatures can plummet to -40 degrees, and the ice groans like a living thing, reminding you that these passageways could collapse at any moment. Yet the rewards are worth the risk. In Greenland's ice caves, researchers have found microbial colonies thriving in total darkness, organisms that survive by eating minerals in the rock beneath the glacier. These extremophiles could hold clues to life on other planets, proving even Earth's harshest corners teem with unseen vitality. Then there's the ice itself, not just frozen water, but a layered archive. In Alaska's Mendenhall Glacier, cave walls reveal stripes of volcanic ash from eruptions centuries past, like tree rings marking calamities. Deeper in, explorers have stumbled upon crevices lined with rare minerals, vivid green copper deposits, or rust-red iron oxides, painting the ice like an artist's palette. But the most startling discoveries are the accidental ones. In 2018, a team in Norway's Svartisen caves found fragments of reindeer antlers, their edges sharpened by human hands, evidence that Stone Age hunters once used these caves as temporary shelters. Imagine standing where they stood, your breath fogging in the same icy air, separated by 10,000 years but connected by the glacier's unyielding memory. Yet these frozen wonders are vanishing faster than we can study them. As temperatures rise, cave ceilings thin and passages collapse. In Iceland, entire ice caves have disappeared within a single winter, taking their secrets with them. The race is on to document these spaces before they're gone, not just for science but for the sheer awe they inspire. Because glacial caves don't just hold Earth's history, they rewrite our understanding of resilience. Life thrives where it shouldn't. Air outlasts civilizations, and ice, far from being silent, whispers stories in a language we're only beginning to decode. High in the thin air of the Andes, where the wind howls across icy peaks, the past clings to the present in the most haunting way possible. Frozen in eternal slumber, the mummified remains of Inca children stare back at us through time, their faces peaceful, their brightly colored textiles still vibrant against the snow. These weren't accidents of nature. They were deliberate offerings, sacrifices placed atop sacred mountains to appease gods who controlled rain, harvests, and survival itself. The ice didn't just preserve their bodies, it suspended their final moments, leaving behind clues to one of history's most profound spiritual traditions. Take the discovery of the Lulelako Maiden, a 15-year-old girl found curled up as if asleep near the summit of a 22,000-foot volcano in Argentina. Her braids were perfectly intact, beads still woven into her hair. Scans revealed her last meal, a ceremonial feast of maize beer and coca leaves, still in her stomach. Nearby, two younger children rested in similar states, their tiny hands clutching miniature figurines of gold and silver. These weren't hasty burials. They were elaborate rituals, ceremonies that might have taken months of preparation. The children, chosen for their beauty and purity, were likely honored before their journey, treated as messengers between worlds. Then, in the thin, freezing air, they succumbed to the cold, their bodies becoming eternal bridges to the divine. What's chilling isn't just their preservation, it's the intimacy of the details. The ice captured everything, the faint traces of red pigment on a child's face, the intricate knots in their shawls, even the remnants of parasites in their intestines that tell us about their diets. Scientists have even detected traces of chicha, a fermented corn drink, in their tissues, evidence of the ceremonial feasting that preceded their ascents. These weren't anonymous victims, they were individuals, their lives and deaths woven into the fabric of Inca cosmology. But why mountains? To the Inca, these peaks were Apu's living gods who demanded respect. By placing offerings at such impossible heights, they were literally reaching for the divine, braving thin air and deadly cold to secure favor for their people. The glaciers, in turn, became sacred freezers, guarding these gifts with perfect fidelity. Modern climbers sometimes report feeling watched near these sites, as if the spirits of the children still linger in the wind. Yet the ice is no longer a guaranteed protector. As temperatures rise, sites once frozen for 500 years are now exposed. In Peru, melting patches have revealed sacrificial bundles before archaeologists can reach them, their textiles disintegrating in the sudden warmth. It's a cruel twist. The same climate change threatening our future is erasing these windows into the past. But each discovery, no matter how fragile, forces us to confront uncomfortable questions. What would we sacrifice to save our communities? And in a world where we've tamed so much of nature, what gods do we still fear enough to offer our most precious gifts? The children on the mountains don't answer. They simply wait, their silent lips holding secrets we may never fully understand. The year 2016 brought a chilling wake-up call from Siberia's thawing wilderness. A heatwave melted permafrost that had sealed a reindeer carcass for 75 years, releasing anthrax spores into the air and water. Dozens were hospitalized, a child died, and over 2,000 reindeer perished as the ancient bacteria, long dormant in the ice, suddenly found itself in a modern world utterly unprepared for its return. This wasn't a fluke, it was a warning. As glaciers and permafrost retreat at record speeds, they're not just exhaling greenhouse gases, they're uncorking bottles of microscopic threats humanity hasn't faced in millennia. And the scariest part, we have no idea how many more are waiting. Consider the sheer scale of this frozen archive. Permafrost ground that's remained frozen for at least 2 consecutive years covers nearly a quarter of the northern hemisphere. In some places, it's been locked solid for hundreds of thousands of years, a deep freeze that's preserved everything from woolly mammoths to the soil they walked on. But soil isn't just dirt, it's a microbial graveyard teeming with bacteria and viruses that once thrived in ancient ecosystems. When researchers sampled 30,000-year-old Siberian permafrost in 2014, they didn't just find dormant microbes, they revived a giant virus, Pithovirus cybricum, in a petri dish. Though harmless to humans, its mere existence proved a terrifying point. Some pathogens can survive ice ages and wake up hungry. The anthrax outbreak revealed another grim reality. Diseases we thought were confined to history books might still be lurking in the ice. Before modern vaccines, countless animals and humans infected with everything from smallpox to the Spanish flu were buried in permafrost regions. In 1997, scientists exhumed a flu victim from Alaska's permafrost who died in 1918, successfully extracting viral RNA from their lungs. Could intact viruses still be frozen alongside them? Genetic studies suggest yes. When researchers analyzed soil from Canada's Yukon, they found traces of horsepox, a virus eradicated in the wild preserved in 700-year-old caribou droppings. It's like stumbling upon a biological minefield where each thawing patch of ground could hide a threat we've forgotten how to fight. But here's where it gets even stranger. Not all these pathogens are enemies we recognize. Permafrost holds microbes from ecosystems that vanished with the Ice Age, life forms that evolved when Neanderthals still walked Europe. When French scientists revived 8 ancient Siberian viruses in 2023, they discovered genes unlike anything in modern databases, blueprints for survival in extreme cold that could theoretically transfer to contemporary bacteria through a process called horizontal gene transfer. Imagine a never-before-seen virus borrowing traits from an ancient cousin, becoming resistant to our antibiotics or immune defenses. It's the ultimate biological wildcard. Yet for all the alarm bells, there's still hope. Unlike Hollywood's apocalyptic scenarios, most revived pathogens so far only attack amoebae or plants. The real risk lies in the unknown, the gaps in our knowledge about what's buried, and how it might interact with modern ecosystems. That's why researchers are racing to map permafrost microbiology, using AI to predict high-risk zones and working with indigenous communities to track unusual animal die-offs. In Alaska, scientists now monitor thawing sites with the same urgency as volcanic observatories, knowing the ground itself could erupt, not with lava, but with relics of a dangerous past. The ice has always kept secrets. Now, as it retreats, it's forcing us to confront a paradox. The very thing that preserved history so perfectly might unleash forces we're not ready to face. And with each passing summer, the question grows more urgent: what else is waking up beneath our feet? Long before scientists drilled their first ice core or uncovered a single mammoth tusk, ancient cultures spun tales of the frozen unknown, stories where glaciers weren't just landscapes, but living entities with wills of their own. In Norse mythology, the frost giant Ymir was born from the primordial ice of Ginnungagap, his body forming the very bones of the earth. Siberian shamans spoke of the Ice Grandmother, a spirit who guarded lost souls in her crystalline prison. Even the Inuit warned of the Mahaha, a demon with icicle fingers that tickled victims to death in the endless cold. These weren't just campfire stories. They were attempts to explain the unexplainable, the eerie groans of shifting ice, the sudden appearance of perfectly preserved animals in melting snow, the way glaciers seem to both give and take life. Now fast forward to modern discoveries, and the line between myth and reality blurs. Take the legendary Shambhala, a hidden kingdom of enlightenment said to lie beneath the Himalayas. For centuries, explorers searched for this utopia, dismissing it as pure fantasy, until glacial archaeologists found the remains of ancient settlements in Tibet's high valleys, their stone walls emerging from retreating ice. Or consider the Scythians, nomadic warriors who told of gold-rich tombs guarded by griffins in the Altai Mountains. When permafrost thawed in the 1990s, it revealed their kurgans burial mounds filled with intricate gold artifacts, and yes, the mummified remains of griffin-like creatures, preserved Protoceratops dinosaurs, their beaked skulls eerily matching the descriptions. The parallels grow even stranger in the Alps, where locals long spoke of a cursed army, swallowed by ice during a freak storm in the Middle Ages. In 2016, climbers stumbled upon a trove of weapons, armor, and even a wooden chest filled with coins near a melting glacier, evidence of a real military disaster dating back to the 1400s. Like echoes across time, these legends often held fragments of truth, distorted by generations of retelling but rooted in tangible events. Perhaps no myth resonates more today than that of the living ice. From Siberia's Nenets people who believed certain glaciers housed the spirits of ancestors, to Tibetan monks who spoke of singing ice that foretold disasters, indigenous cultures treated ice as sentient. Modern science offers an uncanny validation. Glaciers do move, creaking and groaning as they shift. They breathe, releasing ancient air bubbles when melted. Some even bleed, like Alaska's Blood Falls, where iron-rich water stains the ice crimson as it surfaces after centuries trapped below. What's fascinating isn't just that these stories predicted reality. It's how they reveal a universal human instinct. Faced with the incomprehensible scale and power of ice, our ancestors anthropomorphized it, turning glaciers into gods, demons, or keepers of secrets. Today, as science peels back those layers, we're left with a haunting thought. Maybe the old tales weren't just explanations. Maybe they were warnings about the fragility of life, the impermanence of civilizations, and the ice's uncanny ability to remember what the rest of the world forgets. And as the glaciers retreat, they're not just confirming old myths, they're daring us to write new ones. Imagine reading Earth's autobiography, not in pages of paper, but in layers of ice stacked like a towering cake of time. Each slice tells a story, trapped air bubbles whispering secrets of ancient skies, volcanic ash marking calamities like pencil strokes in a diary, dust particles carried by winds that blew when pharaohs ruled Egypt. This is the magic of ice cores, cylinders of frozen history drilled from glaciers, where every foot deeper plunges us further into the planet's past. Take the Greenland Ice Sheet Project, where scientists pulled up a core nearly 2 miles long, a frozen timeline stretching back 120,000 years. Inside, they found proof of sudden climate swings so violent, entire ecosystems shifted within decades. One layer, dating to around 12,000 years ago, holds dust from a global drought so severe it may have triggered the collapse of early civilizations. Another, from 40,000 years back, contains sulfuric acid from a supervolcano eruption that blocked sunlight for years. These aren't just snapshots, they're climate fingerprints showing us how Earth responds to extreme events. And right now, they're screaming a warning. The real genius lies in the bubbles. As snow compacts into ice over centuries, it traps tiny pockets of ancient atmosphere. Using lasers, researchers can measure the carbon dioxide and methane levels in those bubbles with precision. What they've uncovered is startling. Today's CO2 concentrations are higher than any time in the past 800,000 years. But here's what's truly chilling. Ice cores reveal that past spikes in greenhouse gases, like those during natural warming periods, took millennia to develop. Humans have matched those levels in just 200 years. It's like comparing a gentle slope to a vertical cliff, and we're racing up it blindfolded. Yet these frozen archives are crumbling just as we learn to read them. In the Alps, glaciers that once preserved Roman-era climate data are now so thin, their layers smear together like wet ink. In Peru, sacred ice patches that held clues to pre-Incan droughts have vanished entirely. And it's not just the loss of data, it's the speed. Normally, glaciers accumulate new layers as old ones melt away, maintaining a balance. Now, melting outpaces accumulation, erasing centuries of records in years. Scientists describe it like watching a library burn, where each flaming book holds survival tips for our climate future. The stakes couldn't be higher. Ice cores recently proved that the Atlantic Ocean's currents, the conveyor belt that keeps Europe warm, have shut down abruptly before, plunging continents into ice ages within decades. If today's melting freshwater disrupts those currents again, the consequences would be catastrophic. Meanwhile, Antarctica's cores hint at even older secrets, with some layers potentially capturing the atmosphere from 2.5 million years ago, when Earth first cycled in and out of ice ages. What triggered that shift? The answer might lie buried in ice that's now retreating faster than we can drill. This isn't just about understanding the past, it's about decoding survival manuals written in ice. When cores show us how forests expanded during warm periods, it helps predict which crops might thrive tomorrow. When they reveal how societies collapse during droughts, it's a roadmap for preparing our own cities. The irony is crushing. The very thing teaching us how to adapt to climate change is disappearing because of it. And with each glacier lost, we're not just losing ice, we're losing time. The tools of glacial exploration have evolved from ice axes and luck to something straight out of science fiction. Picture a drone skimming just meters above a glacier's surface, its thermal camera detecting subtle temperature variations that hint at artifacts buried below. Meanwhile, miles away, a team lowers a robotic probe into a pitch-black subglacial lake, a place untouched by sunlight for millions of years, where it beams back images of microbial life thriving in conditions once thought impossible. This isn't the plot of a futuristic film. It's how scientists are rewriting history one scan at a time. Ground-penetrating radar has become the workhorse of glacial archaeology, sending radio waves deep into ice to map hidden structures like an X-ray for frozen landscapes. In Norway, this technology recently revealed an entire Viking trade route beneath a melting ice patch, complete with discarded horseshoes and sled fragments. But the real game changer, LiDAR light detection and ranging, which uses lasers to create 3D maps so precise they can spot a single arrowhead under 6 feet of ice. Archaeologists now combine these aerial scans with AI algorithms trained to recognize man-made objects, turning what used to be years of methodical searching into targeted treasure hunts. Then there's the frontier of molecular analysis, DNA sequencing tools so sensitive they can extract genetic material from a 4,000-year-old chewing gum found in Swedish ice. Yes, prehistoric people chewed birch pitch like gum. By studying ancient pollen trapped in ice cores, scientists reconstruct past ecosystems down to the types of flowers that bloomed when the pyramids were built. Even more astonishing, proteomics, the study of ancient proteins, which recently identified a never-before-seen species of Arctic fox from a single tooth found in Siberian permafrost. But perhaps the most daring innovations explore where humans can't go. Subglacial robots like South Korea's IceFin probe navigate through underwater crevices beneath Antarctica, revealing rivers and lakes that have been isolated since before the Ice Age. These robotic explorers discovered something paradigm-shifting: microbial communities living in absolute darkness, metabolizing minerals from bedrock, a clue to how life might survive on icy moons like Europa. Meanwhile, cryo-electron microscopes freeze biological samples mid-movement, allowing researchers to see how ancient viruses and bacteria functioned at the molecular level. The irony is delicious. The same ice that's preserved these secrets for millennia is now surrendering them to technology designed for other worlds. As drones map retreating glaciers in real time and machine learning predicts where the next Ötzi might emerge, one thing becomes clear: we're not just uncovering the past. We're inventing the future to meet it, and with each technological leap, the silent ice has more stories to tell. A leather mitten emerges from the ice after 800 years, its stitches still visible, a fleeting connection to hands that once worked, loved, and lived in a world long gone. But who does this intimate artifact truly belong to? The scientist who documented it, the museum that preserves it, or the descendants of the culture that crafted it? As glaciers retreat at an unprecedented pace, they're exposing more than artifacts. They're uncovering ethical fault lines where science, sovereignty, and sacred memory collide. Take the case of Quede den Tia Sinchai, long ago person found, a naturally mummified indigenous hunter discovered in a melting glacier between Canada and Alaska in 1999. His genetic relatives were located through DNA testing, living members of the Champagne and Aishihik First Nations. But when researchers proposed studying his stomach contents to reconstruct his last meal, elders objected. To them, this wasn't just a specimen, it was an ancestor whose rest shouldn't be disturbed. The compromise: scientists conducted tests under indigenous supervision, blending traditional knowledge with forensic techniques. The results revealed he'd eaten shellfish and mountain goat before his death 300 years ago, details that aligned perfectly with oral histories passed down through generations. Yet not all disputes find such harmony. In Norway, the Sami people have fought for decades to reclaim cultural items, drums, tools, even clothing, from museums that collected them from melting ice patches. To institutions, these are archaeological treasures. To the Sami, their living heritage, pieces of identity frozen mid-use. The conflict reached a boiling point when a 14th-century Sami ski emerged from a glacier, its curved design nearly identical to those still made by Sami craftsmen today. Should it be displayed in Oslo or returned to the community where the knowledge of its creation never died? Governments add another layer of complexity. When Peru demanded Yale University return Inca artifacts taken from Machu Picchu a century ago, it sparked a 15-year legal battle. Now, as melting glaciers expose more Inca offerings on Andean peaks, questions of ownership grow murkier. Are these objects Peruvian cultural property, sacred items belonging to Quechua communities, or global scientific heritage? The tension mirrors larger debates, like who should control the genetic data extracted from indigenous remains, or whether ancient pathogens revived from permafrost belong to the countries where they're found or the global community threatened by them. Some teams are pioneering new models. In Alaska, Tlingit elders now work alongside glaciologists, identifying ancestral sites before they're exposed by thawing permafrost. In Greenland, Inuit hunters guide archaeologists to vulnerable areas, their generations of ice knowledge proving more precise than satellite imagery. These partnerships recognize a profound truth. The people who have lived alongside these glaciers for millennia often hold the keys to understanding what the ice preserved. Their stories of hunting routes, of villages lost to advancing ice, of spirits dwelling in glaciers aren't myths. They're oral maps pointing scientists to discoveries no radar could detect. The ethical tightrope stretches further with commercial exploitation. Black market dealers now monitor glacier retreats, snatching artifacts before archaeologists arrive. On eBay, chunks of woolly mammoth tusk sell for thousands, fueling illegal tusk hunting in Siberia that damages archaeological sites. Even well-intentioned collectors pose problems when a Swiss hiker pocketed a Bronze Age arrowhead from a melting Norwegian ice patch in 2021. He unknowingly erased context crucial for dating and analysis. At its core, this isn't just about objects, it's about voice. Whose narrative frames these discoveries? When a 2,000-year-old Inuit parka is displayed behind glass, does the label celebrate its ingenious waterproof stitching, or does it honor the generations of women who perfected that design? As one Greenlandic elder put it during a repatriation debate, "You measure the age of the thread. We carry the memory of the hands that sewed it." The glaciers preserved these fragments equally. The question is whether we can thaw our own assumptions to meet them with equal grace. The rush to witness vanishing glaciers has turned once quiet ice fields into bustling tourist hubs where awe and destruction walk hand in hand. In Iceland, boats now navigate newly formed lagoons filled with icebergs calving from retreating glaciers, while in Patagonia, hikers trek across exposed terrain once buried under centuries of ice. Local economies thrive as hotels, guides, and restaurants spring up to serve visitors hungry for a glimpse of these disappearing wonders. But beneath the postcard-perfect scenes lies a troubling truth. The very act of loving these places could accelerate their demise. Foot traffic alone poses a silent threat. The delicate soil beneath melting glaciers, known as glacial till, takes centuries to form. Yet a single careless step can erode it in seconds. In Alaska's Mendenhall Glacier caves, Instagram seekers have snapped selfies inside crystalline ice tunnels, unaware their body heat speeds up melting. Worse, some pocket souvenirs, breaking off chunks of ice that took thousands of years to form. The math is cruel. More tourists mean more carbon emissions from flights and buses, which hasten the glacier's retreat, which in turn draws more tourists racing to see them before they're gone. It's a self-perpetuating cycle with no easy exit. Yet dismissing tourism outright ignores its power as a force for good. In Nepal, fees from Everest trekkers fund glacial research and cleanup expeditions hauling tons of trash off the mountains. Swiss guides now use visitor dollars to install reflective blankets on shrinking glaciers, buying time by deflecting sunlight. And when travelers witness these icy giants up close, hearing the thunderous crack of calving ice, seeing the soot-darkened layers of pollution trapped within, they often become vocal advocates for climate action. Tourism dollars also preserve indigenous knowledge. In Greenland, Inuit hunters supplement fading traditional incomes by leading glacier tours, sharing ancestral stories that textbooks never recorded. The solution isn't to bar visitors, but to reinvent how we welcome them. New Zealand's Franz Josef Glacier pioneered a reservation system, capping daily visitors to reduce trampling. In Norway, archaeologists work alongside tour operators, training guides to spot and report artifacts exposed by melt before looters or weather can claim them. Some Alaskan cruise lines now offset passenger carbon footprints by funding renewable energy projects in coastal communities. Even small changes like replacing helicopter tours with electric snowmobiles near Chile's Exploradores Glacier can slash environmental costs without sacrificing the experience. The irony is profound. Glaciers survived eons of natural upheaval, only to face their greatest peril from the species most captivated by their beauty. But if tourism is part of the problem, it's also a potential lifeline, a way to fund conservation, amplify marginalized voices, and turn casual visitors into devoted stewards. The choice isn't between access and preservation. It's about redefining what access means, ensuring those who come to marvel also leave with a mandate to protect. Because glaciers don't just need spectators, they need allies. As glaciers vanish at an alarming pace, scientists aren't just documenting the loss, they're fighting back with ingenuity that borders on science fiction. In the Himalayas, engineer Sonam Wangchuk is building artificial glaciers called ice stupas, towering cones of frozen water that mimic natural glaciers' slow melt properties. These man-made ice reserves store winter meltwater, releasing it gradually during dry months to sustain villages below. It's a stunning fusion of ancient wisdom, using gravity and shade to control melting, and modern desperation. Meanwhile, in Norway's Svalbard archipelago, the Arctic World Archive buries digital backups of humanity's cultural heritage deep inside a frozen mountain, safeguarding everything from Brazilian film reels to Italian opera scores on ultra-durable film designed to last a millennium. The message is clear: if we can't stop the thaw, we'll outsmart it, but some proposals push the boundaries of what seems possible. Cryogenic storage vaults now house not just seeds, like those in the famed Svalbard Global Seed Vault, but entire ecosystems. Researchers in Switzerland freeze slices of endangered alpine plants in liquid nitrogen, preserving genetic blueprints for future restoration. Even more radical. The idea of glacial banking, where ice cores from vanishing glaciers are stored in Antarctic research stations, creating a frozen library of Earth's climate history. These aren't just backups, they're time capsules meant for civilizations we can't yet imagine. Digital preservation offers another lifeline. Laser scanners create millimeter-perfect 3D models of artifacts the moment they're unearthed from melting ice, while AI reconstructs fragmented objects virtually. In Greenland, drones map retreating glaciers daily, building a living record of their death throes. Yet for all their promise, these solutions spark hard questions. Can a digital twin of Ötzi's axe capture the weight of the tool in a Neolithic hand? Does a frozen seed bank truly preserve the relationships, the pollinators, the soil microbes that sustained an entire ecosystem? The most controversial ideas come from geoengineering. To slow glacial melt, some propose pumping ocean water onto Antarctic ice sheets to thicken them, or spreading reflective glass beads over Swiss glaciers to bounce back sunlight. Critics warn these band-aid fixes distract from cutting emissions, but proponents argue the crisis demands all hands on deck. Perhaps the boldest vision comes from glaciologist Jason Box, who suggests using wind-powered pumps to spread artificial snow on Greenland's ice sheet, a last-ditch effort to regrow what's been lost. What unites these efforts is urgency. Every solution, from humble ice stupors to high-tech cryovaults, acknowledges a painful truth: some glaciers can't be saved. But their stories might be. As layers of ice that took millennia to form disappear in decades, we're forced to innovate at the pace of our mistakes. The real test won't be whether we can freeze the past, it's whether we can thaw our collective will to protect the future. Beneath the icy silence, countless mysteries remain suspended in time, secrets the glaciers aren't ready to surrender just yet. For every Ötzi or woolly mammoth pulled from the thaw, there are untold stories still locked away, waiting for the right moment to rewrite history. Take Antarctica's Gambutsev Mountains, a range the size of the Alps buried under 2 miles of ice. Radar scans reveal jagged peaks and deep valleys, but here's the twist: satellite images show liquid water lurking beneath, hinting at vast subterranean lakes isolated for millions of years. What kind of life, if any, could exist in those lightless depths? Scientists speculate about microbial ecosystems entirely unlike anything on the surface, or even ancient extremophiles with genetic codes that defy our understanding of survival. Then there's the enigma of Greenland's dark zone, where ice sheets are stained black by dust and soot, accelerating melt. But embedded in that grime could be clues to forgotten civilizations. When researchers analyzed similar dust layers in Swiss glaciers, they found traces of lead pollution from Roman smelters, proof of industrial activity 2,000 years ago. Now imagine what Greenland's deeper layers might hold. Could Viking settlements swallowed by the Little Ice Age lie preserved beneath the ice? In 2022, radar detected odd geometric shapes under southern Greenland's ice cap, structures too regular to be natural. Were they Norse farms, hunting outposts? Until the ice retreats further, we can only wonder. The most tantalizing possibilities lie in the realm of lost knowledge. Tibetan legends speak of ancient libraries hidden in Himalayan glaciers, where monks supposedly safeguarded texts from invaders. While no such troves have been found, melting ice in Mongolia recently revealed a 6th century Turkic tomb with inscriptions still vivid on its beams. If writing can survive 15 centuries in ice, what older scripts might emerge? Linear A, the undeciphered language of Bronze Age Crete, or even Proto-Cuneiform, predating the earliest known writing systems. The irony is exquisite. Glaciers that once erased human presence now serve as their greatest protectors. Technology is racing to meet these mysteries. Hyperspectral imaging can now detect organic materials under ice by analyzing reflected light wavelengths, while quantum sensors map magnetic anomalies that might signal buried metals. In Sweden, researchers are testing cryodrones that melt narrow boreholes to deploy mini-submarines into subglacial lakes. And then there's CRISPR, gene-editing tools that could one day revive fragments of ancient DNA from ice-trapped organisms, piecing together genomes of species we've never classified. Yet for all our tools, the ice guards its secrets fiercely. Some will only emerge as the planet warms, while others may require leaps in technology we haven't yet imagined. But one thing's certain, every discovery so far has been a prologue. The real revelations are still out there, frozen in place, waiting for their moment to step back into the light. Glaciers aren't just archives of the past, they're canvases for the present, where artists wield ice as both medium and message. Picture a towering sculpture carved directly from a glacier's face, its curves catching the light for just days before melting into a river. Or imagine a microphone lowered deep into a glacial crevasse, capturing the otherworldly groans and cracks of shifting ice, a symphony composed by nature itself. This is the cutting edge of climate art, where creativity and activism collide in the most ephemeral of mediums. Take Danish-Icelandic artist Olafur Eliasson's haunting installation Ice Watch. In cities from London to Paris, he placed massive chunks of Greenlandic glacier ice in public squares, letting them slowly vanish over days. Passers-by could touch the ice, hear it crackle, even taste its ancient purity before it became a puddle at their feet. The impact was visceral. Unlike graphs or statistics, the melting ice didn't just tell people about climate change, it made them feel it in their bones. Similar projects have sprung up worldwide, like Brazilian artist Neil Azevedo's Minimum Monument, thousands of tiny ice figures placed on steps, each melting at a unique pace to symbolize the fragility of individual lives in a warming world. But glacial art isn't just about spectacle, it's about sound too. Swiss composer Ludwig Berger wired sensors to Switzerland's Rhone Glacier, translating its vibrations into eerie, resonant music. The result, a live performance where the glacier itself was the orchestra, its cracks and shifts becoming bass notes and high-pitched sighs. Audiences describe the experience as hearing the earth grieve. Meanwhile, in Alaska, indigenous artists weave traditional stories into ice carvings, like the Yupik masks made from permafrost-thawed mammoth ivory, bridging ancient narratives with modern climate urgency. Perhaps the most provocative works emerge from collaborations with scientists. In Norway, artist Ann-Katrin Dolven partnered with glaciologists to embed poems written in UV-sensitive ink onto icebergs. As sunlight hit the ice, the verses faded, a metaphor for vanishing languages and ecosystems. Elsewhere, drones project laser images onto glaciers at night, wrapping them in data visualizations that show ice loss over decades. These projects blur the line between art and science, proving that emotion and data aren't opposites, they're allies. Yet glacial art carries a built-in paradox. The more powerful the message, the faster its medium disappears. A sculpture that takes weeks to carve might last only hours in a heat wave. A sound recording of glacial echoes could one day document a noise never heard again. This fleetingness is the point. Like the glaciers themselves, these works remind us that beauty is temporary and action can't wait. And as the ice retreats, artists face a new question. When the glaciers are gone, what will they paint with next? The mountains keep their secrets, but sometimes the ice gives them back. In 1999, hikers in the Himalayas stumbled upon a body emerging from a melting glacier near Mount Everest. At first glance, it could have been any unlucky climber lost in recent decades. Then they noticed the vintage boots, the old-fashioned oxygen tank, and the perfectly preserved woolen clothing. This was George Mallory, the British mountaineer who vanished in 1924 during his legendary attempt to summit Everest. The ice had held him for 75 years, suspending him in mid-fall, his altimeter still intact in his pocket. His discovery reignited the century-old mystery. Did he and his partner Andrew Irvine reach the summit before they fell? The ice kept that answer, but it surrendered enough to remind us that even the boldest adventurers are no match for the mountains. Then there's the eerie case of the Dakar airplane crash. In 1966, an Argentine passenger plane carrying 65 people vanished over the Andes. For over 50 years, families wondered where it had gone until in 2020, a Chilean army patrol spotted twisted metal peeking through a shrinking glacier. The ice had crept over the wreckage, preserving it like a bug in amber. Inside, they found luggage tags, shoes, even a woman's purse with coins from the 1960s still jingling inside. Most haunting of all, the bodies were gently mummified by the dry, freezing air, their features still recognizable. For the families, it was a bittersweet closure, a proof that the ice hadn't erased their loved ones, just delayed their return. Not all survival stories end in tragedy. In 1952, a French mountaineer named Jean Vincendon vanished during a storm on Mont Blanc. Rescuers searched for weeks before giving up. Then, 41 years later, a guide leading a trek across the Bossons Glacier spotted a flash of color in the ice. It was Vincendon's bright red jacket, his body perfectly preserved alongside his climbing partner. But here's what defies belief. In his pocket was a handwritten note, the ink still legible after decades in the deep freeze. It detailed their final hours, how they'd survived the initial storm, how they'd hoped for rescue. The glacier had safeguarded not just their bodies, but their last words, a final message across time. These stories share a chilling pattern. Whether it's World War II soldiers emerging from Italian glaciers with rusted rifles still slung over their shoulders, or Soviet climbers found on Kazakhstan's peaks still roped together, the ice doesn't discriminate. It preserves the famous and the forgotten alike, treating a legendary explorer's remains with the same cold care as a lost hiker's. And as the planet warms, these reunions are happening more often, sometimes with unsettling speed. In 2017, a Swiss couple hiking near a glacier saw a boot protruding from the ice. By the time rescuers arrived 2 days later, the melting had already exposed the entire body of a man missing since the 1980s. What's most humbling isn't just the preservation, it's the intimacy. A frozen climber's wristwatch still ticking, a diary's pages fluttering open to an entry about the weather. These aren't artifacts, they're suspended moments snatched from time, and with each discovery comes a question: how many more are out there waiting for the ice to release them? The mountains giveth, and the mountains taketh away, but sometimes when we least expect it, they return what they've borrowed. Beneath the frozen surface of glaciers, there's a hidden symphony, a chorus of creaks, groans, and pops that tell stories no human eye could ever see. Scientists call it cryoacoustics, the study of ice through sound, and it's revolutionizing how we understand these frozen giants. Imagine lowering a hydrophone into a glacial meltwater lake and hearing the otherworldly echoes of ice cracking miles below, or the sudden, gunshot-like bursts of trapped air bubbles exploding after centuries of silence. These aren't just eerie noises, they're vital signs, like the heartbeat of the ice itself. Take the haunting ice quakes recorded in Greenland, deep, resonant tremors that ripple through glaciers as they fracture. By analyzing these sounds, researchers can pinpoint where stress is building, predicting break-offs before they happen. But the real surprise came when they discovered glaciers sing. Under the right conditions, Antarctic ice shelves emit constant, low-frequency hums, vibrating like massive tuning forks as winds whip across their surfaces. The pitch isn't random. It changes as meltwater carves new channels inside the ice, offering an acoustic map of hidden erosion. Then there's the music of meltwater. When glaciers bleed their summer runoff, the water doesn't flow silently. It gurgles, drips, and roars through icy caverns. Scientists at Alaska's Mendenhall Glacier found that the louder and more chaotic these underwater sounds become, the faster the glacier is disintegrating from within. It's like listening to a patient's cough to diagnose pneumonia, but perhaps the most unsettling sounds come from bubbles, ancient pockets of air, trapped for millennia, suddenly popping free as the ice melts. Each one is a tiny time capsule, releasing gas from atmospheres long gone, hissing like a whisper from the past. This sonic detective work isn't just about curiosity. In Switzerland, engineers use acoustic sensors to monitor unstable ice dams, listening for the telltale groans that signal an impending collapse. In the Himalayas, hydrophones track meltwater pulses to predict floods for downstream villages. Even NASA has joined the chorus, testing microphones on Martian glaciers to compare their sounds to Earth's. The goal, to hear climate change in real time, not as abstract data, but as the visceral snap, crackle, and groan of a world in flux. Yet for all its scientific value, glacial soundscapes hold a raw, emotional power. Recordings of calving icebergs' thunderous booms followed by eerie, echoing silence have been turned into orchestral compositions. Inuit elders speak of talking ice, describing how glaciers communicate through vibrations long before they fracture. And in Norway, artists collaborate with glaciologists to translate ice vibrations into haunting piano melodies, blending art and warning. The message is clear: glaciers don't just move, they speak. And if we listen closely, they're telling us everything we need to know. The retreating glaciers of the last ice age didn't just reshape landscapes, they carved pathways for humanity itself. As mile-thick ice sheets shrank back toward the poles, they revealed virgin corridors of fertile land and freshwater passages that became highways for our ancestors. Picture bands of early hunters tracking herds of mammoths and reindeer across the newly exposed tundra, their survival tied to the rhythm of the melting ice. This wasn't just migration, it was a grand planetary chess match, with glaciers as the players moving humanity across continents. One of the most dramatic examples unfolded between Siberia and Alaska. During the Ice Age's peak, so much water was locked in glaciers that sea levels dropped nearly 400 feet, exposing the Bering Land Bridge, a 1,000-mile-wide grassland now buried beneath the Bering Sea. For generations, this vanished world served as a chilly thoroughfare, allowing humans to cross from Asia into the Americas. The timing was everything. Recent archaeological evidence shows these first migrants likely traveled during brief warming periods when glacial retreat created ice-free corridors along the Pacific coast. Then, as the climate cooled again, the glaciers advanced, sealing off the route behind them like a frozen door slamming shut. Meanwhile, in Europe, the cycling of glaciers dictated where humans could thrive. During glacial maxima, much of the continent became uninhabitable, a frozen desert where only the hardiest Neanderthals clung to survival in scattered refuges like southern Spain and Italy's warmer coasts. But when temperatures rose and ice sheets retreated, modern humans flooded into newly opened territories, following rivers of meltwater that teemed with fish and attracted game. The Danube River basin became a superhighway for this expansion, its waters fed by alpine glaciers that were shrinking northward. With each generation, families moved a little further up these glacial watersheds, their campsites marking the incremental reclamation of Europe. The ice didn't just create routes, it forced innovation. In mountainous regions like the Andes and Himalayas, early settlers developed unique adaptations to survive near glaciers. Quechua communities in Peru still use ancient techniques to channel meltwater for irrigation, a practice that may date back to some of the continent's first inhabitants. Similarly, in Central Asia, nomads timed their migrations to glacial-fed oases, passing this knowledge down through oral traditions that persist today. The glaciers were more than landmarks, they were lifelines, their seasonal rhythms dictating when to plant, when to hunt, and when to move on. Now fast forward to more recent history. Viking explorers took advantage of the medieval warm period, a time of significant glacial retreat, to colonize Greenland and briefly reach North America. Their settlements flourished while the ice remained at bay, then collapsed when the Little Ice Age brought advancing glaciers and longer winters. It's a pattern that repeats across civilizations. The Khmer Empire's sophisticated water systems relied on glacial melt from the Himalayas, just as ancient Mesopotamian cultures depended on rivers fed by Taurus mountain glaciers. When these icy reservoirs fluctuated, entire societies rose or fell with them. Today, scientists trace these ancient journeys through surprising clues. Geneticists follow markers in DNA that spread as populations moved along ice-free corridors. Linguists map how language groups dispersed along glacial river systems. Even the isotopes in ancient teeth tell stories revealing whether a person grew up near glacial-fed springs or coastal waters. Together, these threads weave an epic tale of human resilience, showing how our species turned the challenge of a changing planet into opportunity. The glaciers may have been indifferent forces of nature, but for early humans, they were the silent architects of civilizations, spread their slow retreat, writing the first chapters of human history on every continent. Buried deep within the ice, where no sunlight ever reaches, time capsules wait patiently for future civilizations to uncover them. These aren't your typical metal boxes filled with photos and coins. They're carefully curated snapshots of human existence, designed to survive centuries of frozen slumber. In the remote reaches of Norway's Svalbard archipelago, a vault carved into the permafrost holds hundreds of these messages from the present, each one sealed against the elements with the hope that someone, someday, will crack them open and understand who we were. What drives someone to leave a letter for the future in a glacier? For some, it's a scientific experiment. Researchers at the Swiss Federal Institute of Technology buried a time capsule in the Alps containing seeds, bacteria, and even a USB drive loaded with climate data, hoping to study how these materials degrade or endure over centuries. Others see it as an act of defiance against time itself. Artists like Katie Patterson have embedded recordings of melting glaciers inside ice cores, creating a poetic loop where the artwork both documents and becomes part of the landscape it describes. Then there are the personal capsules, letters from parents to unborn descendants, sealed in titanium tubes and placed where only a thawing world will reveal them. The contents of these icy vaults reveal as much about our hopes as our fears. Some hold practical warnings like coordinates of nuclear waste sites or instructions for surviving post-catastrophe environments. Others are more philosophical, like the Doomsday Library in Svalbard, which stores digital backups of human knowledge on ultra-resistant film, ensuring that even if our servers crumble, our stories won't. One capsule buried in Greenland by climate scientists contains a simple, haunting note. We knew, we acted, did you? But glaciers are fickle, archivists. What happens when the ice meant to preserve these capsules melts too soon? In 2021, a hiker in the Austrian Alps stumbled upon a metal capsule meant to stay buried until 2250. Its contents, including cryptocurrency keys and crop samples, suddenly exposed decades ahead of schedule. It's a stark reminder that even our best attempts to outwit time depend on the very ice we're losing. Perhaps the most poignant capsules are the unintentional ones. A plastic toy washed ashore in Iceland, still bright after decades adrift. A soda can dropped by a climber in the 1960s, now emerging from a glacier's edge, its logo eerily unchanged. These accidental relics raise a chilling question. Long after our purposeful messages are gone, what will the ice remember about us? The answer might already be written, not in titanium, but in layers of microplastics and soot, the real-time capsules we never meant to leave behind. Iceland's Vatnajökull Glacier doesn't just dominate the landscape, it powers it. Beneath its icy expanse, meltwater carves furious rivers that plunge through turbines, generating enough electricity to light up thousands of homes. This is glacial energy in action, where ancient ice becomes modern power. Across the globe, engineers are tapping into these frozen reservoirs, turning the relentless flow of meltwater into one of the cleanest energy sources on Earth. But harnessing glaciers isn't as simple as damming a river. It's a delicate dance between innovation and preservation, where every megawatt comes with a moral question. How much can we take before the ice pays too high a price? The mechanics are deceptively simple. As glaciers melt, their water funnels into rivers with tremendous force energy that hydroelectric plants capture by channeling it through turbines. In Norway, over 90% of electricity comes from hydropower, much of it fed by glacial runoff. Switzerland's Rhone Glacier supplies water to a network of dams that power entire valleys. Even in the Himalayas, remote villages now use micro-hydro systems fed by glacial streams, bringing light to places once dependent on diesel generators. The appeal is obvious. Unlike wind or solar, glacial hydropower runs constantly, unaffected by cloudy skies or calm days. But there's a catch. Glaciers aren't infinite batteries, they're shrinking. Iceland's engineers already face a paradox. As temperatures rise, glacial rivers swell temporarily, creating a surge of energy. But once the ice is gone, the flow dwindles to a trickle. Some Icelandic plants have seen output spike by 20% in recent years, only to prepare for a future where rivers run dry. It's like burning through a savings account while counting on an inheritance that might not arrive. The environmental stakes are just as precarious. Damming glacial rivers can disrupt ecosystems overnight. In Patagonia, protests halted a massive dam project when studies revealed it would starve downstream wetlands of vital sediment. Indigenous Sami communities in Scandinavia warn that diverting glacial rivers harms reindeer pastures, disrupting migration patterns honed over centuries. Even the act of drilling into glaciers for energy exploration risks accelerating their melt, a cruel irony where the solution worsens the problem it tries to solve. Yet some pioneers are rethinking the model. Instead of massive dams, Iceland now experiments with a run-of-river systems that divert water without reservoirs, minimizing ecological damage. In the Alps, engineers design turbines that adjust to fluctuating flows, squeezing energy from both summer melts and winter freezes. Perhaps most intriguing are geothermal hybrids, where glacial water is injected into hot volcanic rock, creating steam to power turbines, a marriage of ice and fire that could redefine renewable energy. The lesson is clear: glaciers offer power, but not without limits. As the world races toward sustainability, these icy giants remind us that even green energy has shades of gray. The true test won't be whether we can harness glaciers, it's whether we can listen to them, balancing our needs with the wisdom of landscapes that have outlasted empires. After all, the ice didn't survive this long by being reckless. Maybe we shouldn't be either. As we stand at the crossroads of discovery and loss, the silent guardianship of glaciers takes on new urgency. These frozen archives have spent millennia meticulously preserving what time would have erased, whispering stories through perfectly intact Viking tunics, reviving microorganisms that predate human civilization, even safeguarding the last breaths of ancient atmospheres in tiny air bubbles. But now, the very ice that protected these wonders is vanishing before our eyes, revealing its treasures at a pace we can scarcely document, let alone comprehend. This isn't just about archaeology or climate science, it's about reckoning with the fragility of memory itself. Each artifact pulled from the thaw carries dual meaning, a triumph of preservation and a warning. When a 5,000-year-old arrow emerges from Norwegian ice, its wooden shaft still smooth from the archer's grip, we're reminded that civilizations rise and fall, but the ice remembers. When Siberian permafrost surrenders a woolly mammoth with liquid blood still in its veins, we're confronted with nature's staggering power to suspend time and our responsibility not to squander its lessons. The paradox is heartbreaking. As glaciers retreat, they're handing us gifts wrapped in grief, more knowledge than we've ever had, just as the systems that preserved it collapse. But there's hope in this race. Indigenous communities are reclaiming ancestral knowledge from melting sites. Citizen scientists are tracking glacial changes with smartphone apps. Artists are transforming ice loss into powerful calls to action. Every revelation, whether it's a 2,000-year-old sandal or a revived prehistoric virus, tightens the bond between past and present, urging us to listen closer. So where do we go from here? Start by looking at glaciers not as frozen wastelands, but as living libraries. Support research that documents vanishing ice cores and rescues exposed artifacts. Travel responsibly to fragile sites, leaving no trace. Most importantly, let these icy time capsules shift your perspective. The next time you see a glacier, in person or in pixels, remember, you're not just looking at ice. You're gazing into a mirror that reflects millennia, showing us who we were, who we are, and who we might yet become. The glaciers have kept their silence for ages. Now, as their voices grow louder in their thawing chorus, it's our turn to answer. What we do next will determine whether future generations inherit a world of discovery, or one where the ice's secrets melted away before we could hear them. The choice, like the artifacts emerging from the frost, now lies in our